Welcome back to my studio. This is Colleen with Designs of Value Art, and we're going to continue with our beautiful pear, here, and the two different leaves. We've done the one leaf, now the basic of the one leaf. Now we're going to do the basics of this leaf, and then I think we're going to do some of the veining and the tree branch and that type of thing will be the next thing that we do. And of course, the first thing we need to do is add some water. And I'm using a different brush this time. It's a Escoda number 6. It's a nice one. And I just want to see how it handles holding the water, because if it holds the water, then I'll know it'll be great with the paint. So I'm just putting a clear coat with the blending and glazing medium. In the water so that I have more time to play. And that's what the blending and glazing medium does, is it extends your time that you can work with the paint once applied, which is really nice. I know a lot of people don't use the blending and glazing medium unless they're doing a really large area, but I really like the advantage it gives me with being able, and I'm looking at the side of my paper, to be able to play with the paint a little bit longer if I need to. Just looking to make sure I got everything covered. It's virgin paper here, so we're going to put 2 coats down. Looking at the side of your paper is always going to help to allow you to see if your paper is covered. I'm going to just let this set up for a moment, and then we'll go ahead and add another coat. With virgin paper, I believe in putting down 2 layers of paint. I think it just needs to soak into that 100% cotton a little bit. Allows you to work the paint a little bit better. And you don't really need to let it set up too long. And I like to do the second coat in kind of a sweeping motion that allows me to make sure I get enough water on there. And I make sure that I get it up right to the edge of where I need it. Okay, and again, I'm looking at the side of my paper. I can see where the shininess is. I can see if there's a dull spot. If there's a dull spot, I need to add some water to that area. Just a nice little trick. Now, since that's my water brush, I'm going to set that aside. Just looking for a number 6 here. Bet you this is it. Yeah, my number 6. And I'm just going to wake it up a little bit because I haven't painted with it at all yet today. Get some water on it. Wipe any excess off the ferrule. And just for full disclosure, I wanted this one to have a little bit more depth to it, so I added a little bit more of the French ultramarine, and then I sprayed it with my water so that the paint would be moist. It still needs more water. It's still pretty stiff. There we go. And this is part of the trick of watercolors. you have to figure out how much water to add to make it so that your paint is what you want it to be and make it do what you want it to do. And right now, what we're going to do, and I just want to show you on the reference photo, is we're going to darken in this. We're going to skip this area because we'll use our lighter, and we're going to darken in this so we can go back in and pull out that stem. And then we're going to skip this little area, and we're going to skip that little area, but the rest of it's going to be the dark. So we're going to start filling that in first. See how nice and moist that paint is? And you don't have to get it right up to the very edge to begin with. You can just dot it in, and it will spread. This is spreading nice because it's got a lot of water in it because I just added a bunch. And right up around here is where it starts to, there we go. Perfect. And I'm just reloading my brush, bringing it to a point. That's what I like about the Billy Shoal brushes, that long bristle that is absolutely perfect with watercolors. It really holds a lot of paint, but you've got that nice point that you can add in and do a lot of different things with. Just going back to my reference, double checking. Now this has got the masking fluid on it, that little dots, so we can cover that right up if we want to. This we're going to go around. And this area down here will go around. Now if we needed to, of course, one of the techniques that I showed you was pulling color out. And we'll go over that again. Okay, I want to get this a little darker up here. And this is just our first layer. We'll be doing more. And I went right over this white spot over here on purpose so I can show you how to pull that out. I'm going to just clean my brush. Now to do this, your brush needs to be drier than the paper, and I want to pick up some of this color up here. See how that just sucked up some of that real dark? I didn't want it all that dark right there. And I'm wiping it off in between. I don't want it quite this dark here. It's kind of where a ripple on the paper is. And I don't want it quite this dark here. So all I'm doing is taking a nice dry brush and basically just setting it in where the puddles are and picking up any extra paint that we don't want. Now I just cleaned my brush out. I'm going to dry it really good. It's real dry. It's drier than the paper, most important part. Some of this seeped in over here, so we'll pick that up. Wipe your brush off in between because again you want it drier than the paper or it's not going to pick anything up. And if you don't wipe it off in between and just put your brush back down again, well, you've just laid back down the paint that you just picked up. So you want to be sure and wipe in between. And there's a spot right here that needs to come out. That's the spot I left on purpose. I'm going to go down to my number 4. Yep. So I think that'll work a little bit better for this. Yeah, see how that's just picking that right up. It's not going to take it right back to the exact color of the background, but it's going to be pretty white, which is nice. That's what we want. Okay. Just keep working on it until it stays. While it's drying, excuse me for a moment. I'm back. Never fails. There's always something going on. Okay. So what I want to do here is just get a little bit more paint right in this area. And in this area over here while it's still wet. And there is a dark area right here where, right underneath that highlight, where you can see the actual two different sides of that petal. Cleaning out my brush, I'm going to just grab some of that color away. Just a little bit too much. And pull some of that up again. Just like I said, you just have to keep working the highlights. Doesn't have to be a bright white, but we do want, we're going to add in some of that bluer, like in this area it's going to be the bluer color that we did in this area. And it's still wet enough that I can pull some of that out. Okay, now I am not going to add any water to these areas because it's still moist. I'm going to put some of that blue in here, and the blue is what makes it look cool and lighter. Go, that's better. Pick up some more of the blue and go right over that dot. And this should still be wet enough that they'll commingle. That's another reason I like to do the blending and glazing medium. It stays moist longer when something like the phone rings. And double coating it makes it last a lot more moist all the time too. There we go. Okay, now there's just a little bit of detail that I want to put in there. I'm going to add some more of that blue in here. Get some more water in there. Get some more color in here. Make sure it shows up as a cooler green. And every time I load my brush, all I'm doing is loading it and rolling it to a point. Just keeps your brush at a nice point, and then it stays that way, which is really what you want. Okay. Now this side right here is a little darker, so I'm going to add just a touch of French ultramarine blue to my paint just off to the side, because that's going to darken it. Needs a little bit of water. This area is darker, right in through here. And this is just our little details while it's drying. And this area out here is darker too, because it's up against the pear. And then again down here, this area is as well. There we go. Clean my brush, dry it off, pick up that dot there. And I think we're pretty good. There's one more real dark spot right in here. Add some more of that dark color in there. And study your reference, because that's what's going to make your design look realistic, is by, I mean, you don't have to copy the reference completely. If you want, you can change it. That's what being an artist is all about. Make it yours, but you do want to study it. Okay, we're going to let that dry as we go on and mix some colors. So I'm going to set this aside. I don't want that to have a... There we go. That's better. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to bring my palette over. Clean my brush and set it down so I don't drop it, so you can see me mix the next colors. Now I'm going to leave the green there. However, I am going to clean up the blue-green out of there so that we got a clean spot. All I'm doing is taking a piece of paper towel and getting it moist, wiping it out. Not a big deal. I never have enough space. Not in my studio, not on my palette. There we go. And I'm going to get my mixing brush which really saves your good brushes. You don't want to mix with your good brushes. I know I forget and do it every now and again. I'm going to put a little bit of water up here. We need a lighter yellow. And it's almost a yellow green. So I'd say that's really, really pretty good. I'll pick up just a little bit of green from over there. That's even better yet. So that's all I did was add lemon yellow and a little bit of our green. I'm going to add just a little bit more lemon. The lemon just really keeps it nice and bright too. So that'll be for our stems. Now let's do a mixture for those branches and some of our stem of the pear itself. And it's dark reddish color. So we're going to use we've got black, and then we've got burnt umber and burnt sienna. Let's start with burnt sienna. Get some color out here. Water. Nope, went to the wrong one. Let's get the burnt sienna. But we want to give it some depth too, so we are going to go into the burnt umber. That's better. Very similar colors, but the burnt sienna's got a little bit more red in it, as you can see by me adding that there. And the burnt umber is just going to give us the depth that we want. And then there's even a darker side to that. I'm going to try just a touch of the ivory black to it once. This is the stem that we're going to be painting. There we go, that's better. Adding in a little bit more of the burnt umber along with the black to our original mixture. So what I've done here is I've created this color and this color with the light one, and then the darker one is going to be the darkest one that I just created. All right, we don't need a lot of those, hopefully. Set my mixing brush aside after I've cleaned it. Okay, put my palette back. And I'm gonna turn it. Well, no, I'm not gonna. My table is at a slight angle, and all my paint runs down if I don't keep it kind of the way it is. So, okay, let's see how our leaf was drying. I still would like to get this a little darker here. Let me see if it's dry. Yep. And I'm going to pick up my number 4 again. And I'm going to just grab some of our darker value. I'm going to pull it off to the side and add in a lot of water and just water it down. So I want to give this blue here a little bit more of a green color to it than the bright blue that it is. Mix it in with the colors around it. Bring that over a little bit too. There we go. Yeah, I like that better. Just kind of stuck out a little bit too much for me. And we might end up going ahead and doing that down there as well. I'm going to just soften this in a little bit, still moist. And I went over here, so I'm going to just pick that color up. Needs a little bit more moisture. Just kind of wiggle your brush on top of it. See how it's just picking that up. Wipe your brush off in between. And you are good to go. And you can always use your Eradicator later on if you need to. Okay, I'm going to do just a little bit of that green in here too. Kind of picked up the color, and I didn't necessarily want to do that. But like I said, this is just the first layer. Just grabbing a piece of paper towel. Just going to pick up some of that color. Now I'm just going to take clean water so I can re-moisten it. Basically, just like that. Wipe my brush. That water can come all the way over. See how it's creating these ridges? That's what I'm trying to correct. So now I've got a lot of water in there. More than I wanted. So we need, as we look at this, this is the area that we're painting. We need a dark line in there. So I'm just going to pick up our dark color, roll my brush to a point. First thing I want to do is get this over here because this should be nice and dark too. There we go. It's going down nice. All right, now this other area is going to be much wetter. Although I did pick up some of the color with the paper towel. So there's always a way to fix these things if you're not happy. And sometimes you just need to let it dry and stop putzing with it. And then you can fix it a lot better too sometimes. So we got the dark area back in there. It really does need to come all the way down, so we'll do that. So I clean my brush and I'm just softening that edge so you don't have a harsh line. I don't want it to go over that blue. But if you're going to go back in like that, you want to get water over the whole area. Or sometimes it's just not going to dry correctly. There we go. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of the blue that I had sitting there. Just like that. And a little bit of that lighter value right here. Okay, now that should be okay. I can always soften these edges up here once it's dry. Now, let's go ahead and do this stem up here. The darker red color is actually right down the inside edge. So we're going to use our water brush. And add in some water. I'm going to extend that just a little bit because it's going to go beyond the mat board that I'm going to have on there. But that's okay. That's what I want. Looking at the side. Making sure I've got it all covered. And I'm going to extend this side a little bit too. And don't forget you got this little branch up here you want to cover. Okay. Don't look too bad. Looks a little dry right there. So we'll add in some water right there. And a little bit down here. Okay, we're going to let that set up for a moment, and then I'm going to add in another layer of water. I wish this brush had just a little bit better of a point to it. Really like that. But it works pretty good as a water brush. It holds quite a bit of moisture. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Make sure I got that area covered. And don't forget, wherever your water is, that's where your paint is going to go. So keep that in mind. So we're going to do the inside first, which is the red side. So I'm going to just pick up my color. It needs a little bit of water. There we go. And bring my brush to a point. It's about halfway down. And up here it's in this area. And really, the way the paint is spreading, it's going to help me with the darker value. Cleaning my brush, picking up the darker value, need a little bit of water, adding that in. Just drop this in, making sure we get right up to that edge. Bringing it up this little branch here. Now I got a water droplet on my ferrule, so I'm wiping that off so it doesn't roll down and hit my paper. Just keep on going, keep dropping your color in. You want these two to commingle because you want the colors to blend into each other. Now, if you felt this needed to be darker, you can go back over it, add in some more color. And this will dry lighter, so a second coat wouldn't hurt with a darker value. I'm just going over the dark one more time. And if you get some darker in one spot than the other, that's great, because that's the way branches are. All right, I'm going to take a moment and dry both of these areas, and then I'll be right back with you. So I'm back. Everything's nice and dry and cool to the touch, which is what you want. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the red color that we used on the branch, and I'm going to just darken it a little bit more red for this area. So we've got this area, and a little bit comes down this way, but then behind this is some that comes down. So we'll get those areas wet. With the water, with the blending and glazing medium. And then the top of the stem here. Then we want to jump that vein. This comes down a little bit like that, and then over here. So this is such a small area. Don't know if I really need to coat it twice. That looks good. All right. So I'm going to grab my brush, my number 4. Now I'm going to pick up that reddish tone that we had made for the branch. This is quite a bit darker. I'm going to add in some alizarin crimson to that. Not much. It's not going to take a whole lot. See, here I am mixing with my good brush. There we go. So I added just a little bit more of the burnt umber back in, just to darken that up a little bit, but it's definitely, I'm just going to turn it so I can get at it better and make sure you can see me, and you can. See, it's a little bit darker color, and that's exactly what I wanted, but it's still in the brownish red family. So all I did was add in a little bit of alizarin crimson, get it a little bit more rosy, and then some more burnt umber just to keep it in the brown family. All right. Yeah, I really did not need to add 2 coats of water in there. It would have been way too much. So I'm just reloading my brush, looking at my reference. Now, there is a little bit of this that comes right down here like this, so we'll add that in right away. Just like that. Reload. And then the very top of the stem. Like that. And then it does come down here, but you want to jump over your stem there. And there is some down here too. And I lost a little bit of my stem, so I'll go back in and gather that back or remove that. So I just cleaned my brush. I want to make sure my brush is dry. Just pick that right up. Just like that. Now, I'm just going to soften this inside edge. I just have a moist brush, and I'm just getting rid of the harsh line, so it'll dry without that. Now this edge is okay. You want that to have a harsh line. to see where we're at here. Missed a couple spots. You want to go right up to the background. When needed to. There we go. Okay. So we got those areas in. Just looking at my reference photo. Now this does have, and I'm putting this wet on dry, right here where the stem comes in, this exact color on this leaf. So being wet on dry, I lay it down, I clean my brush. Doesn't have to be completely dry to do this, but then you soften that edge so it doesn't dry harsh. So good, we got that in. Actually could use a little bit more color. Just like that. There really isn't any of that color on the other leaf. Okay. Now I'm going to just take a moment and dry that area, and then we can put our yellow green in the stem. So I'll be right back with you. Well, we're back. Everything's nice and dry to the touch. So now what we're going to do is add in our stems. Now we've got this one on top here is fairly light, and it goes right into this red there. So that's our light one. And then this one's a little bit lighter as well, but this one's darker and this one's darker. And then the rest of the stem is darker. So let's start with this one and work, since I'm right-handed, we're going to work this way and then there, and then the stem, and then we'll do the light one. So grab my brush, make sure it's nice and clean. We got our color all mixed. We're going to do the dark ones first. All right, now this is going to be just dry, or wet on dry. We're going to do this little stem over here first. See, it's a little bit more green and yellow. Had a little bit more paint on my brush than I wanted, so all I did was tap my cloth. This goes right down to that red spot we painted. Just like that. There we go. A little bit of a darker green in there than what we had even. Okay. Now I got my paper on a tilt there, so I should probably put it back down. Now I'm going to go looking to see where we're at here. There is one right in here. I covered it up basically. So I think what I'm going to do is take my Eradicator. Instead of trying to go over that red, which I know I never will, I'm going to just lift it out. Pick it up. There we go. Okay. And this one is a little darker. It actually goes all the way up, so I'm going to take my Eradicator. Covered up the whole thing, poor thing. and go right through this area with my Eradicator. You can see how nice the Eradicator works in this situation, can't you? There we go. Set that aside. And continue on with the green. There we go. Yeah, it almost goes right up to that stem we painted. I'm going to add just a bit more color into this one as it needs it. Okay. Now this next one is just a tad lighter, so we don't have to go quite so green. And this is actually an extension of this one, so way more paint than what I wanted. Way more moisture in my paint, I should say, than what I wanted. So all I did was tap it on my brush, my baby cloths. This goes right up to that green edge there, and it kind of goes into a fork type thing down here. Get that just a little bit more green up here. There we go. Better. You always want to be looking at your values, and are you getting a good value? That type of thing. Now, this one is the lightest. This one is more green, so let's put the stem in, the rest of that stem. And again, this is wet on dry. I'm not adding any moisture to the paper first. And I'm just looking to see where this is all going here. This comes down into the pear and then comes over under here. Just like that. Just adding in a bit more color right there. Too much moisture, so it just spread it out a little bit further than I wanted it to. There we go. That's better. Add in a little bit more down here. And then we'll have our yellow that comes in. And so our last stem is right there. Clean my brush. So I want this one to be lighter. Adding in a little bit of the moisture from my brush to the paint because it kind of sat there for a while. Now this is going to come right up next to that red. That's part of that stem. There we go. Good. See, it's a little bit more bright. It's a little bit more yellow. Excuse me. And that's what we wanted. And this comes right down. And again, this is just our first layer. We'll get rid of some of those lines in there from the graphite. Just like that. And this isn't going to show up because it's so dark. But that's okay. We'll get it in. And then we can always come back to it. Okay. So I think we've got all of our veins, or our stems in. Just double checking myself to make sure that that's the case. And it looks as if it is. Okay. Excuse me. Now this is going to be the end of it today, although I'm just going to take this masking fluid off right here. Just did it with my finger because it's easier. And I'm going to pick up that same color we just used. And there's almost like what I would call a highlight right here in the yellow, and it looks like it's part of the vein. And it just kind of comes down here and dances off into nothing. However, right to the right of that is a dark green, which looks like part of that vein as well. And again, this is just wet on dry. Just like that. Bring that all the way down. And I'm just going to soften this edge of that dark vein so it'll soften into the other colors around it. Put my hand on some of that masking fluid and it feels damp, so I had to look real quick to see if I put my hand in the paint, and I did not. That's a good thing. One more time just to soften that in. And I picked up my red color that I had there, so gotta be careful when you got paint down. You can pick some of it up by accident like that. I'm gonna just go right back into that color and put it right back in. There we go. Just like that. Now I'm going to dry this, and then when we come back, we'll start on the pear, mix all of those colors. And so I'll see you then.